Hey, it's Matt Pinfield. It's KLOS New and Approved, and my guest this week is Myles Kennedy from Alter Bridge. Myles, good to see you, man. How you doing?
I'm good. It's great to see you, Matt.
You know,
Really great.
I'll tell you, I was just thinking as I played earlier, "The River Is Rising" from the Slash album #4 with you and the Conspirators, and it was a #1 record on here, and I'm really excited us debuting Silver Tongue as well, which is such a great track, So,
Thank you.
I want to talk to you about that. Myles, so this is the 7th studio album now from Alter Bridge, which is amazing. When you look back now, think about that. Does it feel like it's really been that many years? How long has it been since you first joined and started the band with the guys?
Yeah, it's been January 2nd, 2000, or yeah, it was 2004. That was the first day we all jammed together. So, yeah, we're coming up on, it'll be 20 years before we know it. So, it's hard to believe.
It is. This album's got some great songs on it, 10 songs, and, I want to talk to you about this record. I think we should start with the track that we played as the new singles. Tell me more about Silver Tongue and this song.
Yeah, Silver Tongue was the interesting thing about that song was that the genesis of it was actually that riff was something I'd been, when I'm demoing ideas, and it was originally like a little bridge riff that I had. And I remember when I was listening to the demo for that particular track, there's something about that riff that really leapt out. And I thought, okay, I think that is exceeds the rest of the song. So I'm going to start from the beginning again and build something around that. So put together a rough demo, and then knew that that feel and that vibe, Mark would have some really cool things to go along with it. So for the bridge section, he had this really great aggressive riff that it's kind of like a rock and roll Reese's peanut butter cup.
Yeah.
The two things came together really well. And yeah, but interestingly enough, I had no idea it was going to be a single. I thought it would be maybe a decent album track, and so I'm very surprised to see that it's been, it's been launched as a single for this record.
And it's a very powerful track. There's so many great songs on this record. I love these 10 songs, and your storytelling ability is just as strong as ever on this
No, thank
record. I
you.
want to talk about some of the other songs. The album opens with "This Is War." Can you tell me about that song?
Yeah, that song. That's an interesting song because it was kind of at least the music, the initial genesis of the music was a dream, and a lot of times that as songwriters, those are fascinating because you can be coming out of sleep and all of a sudden the universe just drops this concept on you, and you got like, if you're comfortable in bed and under the covers, you're like, we got a song here, we got to go chase it down. So I got up and ran into my studio and put down the kind of what I refer to as the shell of that song, and then once again Mark had a really cool middle section for it. But yeah, I think people hear the title "This Is War" and assume it's has something to do with kind of the state of the world, but it actually is more a call to arms, really dealing with things internally for me. And a lot of songs um, tend to touch on the subject of dealing with anxiety, dealing with those inner demons that we all kind of have to put up our dukes and fight with once in a while. So that's what that song is about.
It's great. And what about the next track, "Dead Among the Living"? I love that one as well. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, yeah, I like that song too. I love that. I like that riff. To me, that riff, it's very much a Mark riff. It's very reminiscent of kind of the Blackbird era, um, as far as the feel of that riff. And that the lyrical narrative is really about seeing somebody who's, um, I think, afraid to reach their own potential and their own, I guess, just looking at somebody from afar and listening to them kind of downplay themselves and trying to make them aware of what they could be. It's kind of a, you're better than who you think you are, I think. in a lot of ways.
And I think a lot of people go through that too. You know what I mean? And they know people who have. So I think
Yeah.
that's,
Oh, yeah. It's a common thing.
absolutely. And Fable for the Silent Sun too. That track I love. It's the longest, probably the longest song you guys have ever done. As far as
I think
it
so.
clocking in at like 8 minutes and 31 seconds. It's a real magnum opus kind of track. Talk to me about that song and the storytelling aspect of that.
Sure. That was a challenging song on a number of levels to write. It was challenging just to compose musically. It's essentially two songs. You have the first couple minutes, and then it goes into a second movement, which I think personally, what I like about that is it's unpredictable. You don't know where it's going towards the tail end of that first 2 minutes, and then it takes it into a new realm. So it's a really fun sonic journey. I think the lyric is written from the perspective of looking in the rear view mirror, and especially if you've lived a life that I'm just to be candid, some of us in the band have kind of gone through our struggles and dealt with our demons, and we've come out to see the other side, and we're still around. And so it's really in a lot of ways, as someone who's been on this planet, lived, made mistakes, it's trying to kind of impose a certain wisdom to somebody else, so hopefully they won't make the same mistakes. And that's really what that narrative is about.
That's great. I really love that. Let's talk about the working with Elvis Basquette again. I mean, you guys have known him for a long time. What is it? Tell me about it. Is it a comfort level? Does he understand and bring the best out in you guys as a band when you work together? Tell me about that relationship with your producer.
Yeah, I think it's a big part of it for me personally is the comfort level. I think that knowing that we can trust him. He's been at the helm for so many records, and when he suggests, "Hey, what if we try this here?" I'm not questioning, "Oh, I don't know if this is going to work out because we haven't worked with this person. This could end up being a train wreck." He's proved himself time and time again to where there's a comfort there, and that's really, really important. It's the same way I feel about collaborating as a writer with other writers. You work with people enough, and you understand what they're able to do and bring to the creative realm. And it's once you're comfortable in that, it's very liberating. It's awesome because you're not always second guessing things. You're all able to stay in the moment, and you're able to let that process flow. And at the end of the process, you have something that you're proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of things that you guys have done, I think it's cool that you've always worked on other things as well. I mean, you finished your second solo album. You work with Slash, of course, as well. And can we talk about Mark and his Sinatra tribute album that he did for the National Down Syndrome Foundation? I just thought that was so cool. I'm a huge Sinatra fan. When did you find out he was so into Sinatra and that he could actually sing as well? When was that?
Well, I always knew he could sing. I think the Sinatra, the affinity he has for Frank Sinatra came about in the last few years, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I didn't learn till I would say within a few months of him actually doing that whole thing. So yeah, for me, it's been beautiful to see how much he's enjoyed doing that. It's a great cause. It's bringing him joy. It's bringing people joy who see it and listen to it, and it's raising money for a great cause. So yeah, it's been, I think, a beautiful thing all the way around.
Absolutely. I've got to say, and we've talked about this in other interviews in the past, but there's so many really great moments that I've seen since you were 16 years old when I first met you. You were 16 when we met. It's unbelievable. I think looking
Was
back on
I?
that, 16. Yeah,
Time is flying.
Yeah, that's flown by. It's incredible. But seeing you through great years was making amazing music with Mayfield 4. I mean, I remember "Don't Walk Away" was like just one of my favorite songs. I love that track, and I was like,
you.
"Wow,
Thank you.
man, this song this guy's writing." I mean, it had beautiful old soul and just your soaring, incredible singing voice, which so many people do appreciate. But just, I know these things have been asked about before, but I do have to bring up, because somebody we were talking about it recently, was when you were involved with the film Rockstar, because I think that was just what a cool experience. Can you talk to me about working on that?
Yeah, that was an amazing experience because I didn't expect it. I just remember I was hanging out here in Spokane where I live, and my manager calls and he's like, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to LA and in Hollywood and being a part of this film?" And I was like, "Well, I told him, I was like, I've never acted a day in my life. I don't know how that's going to play out. He's like, "Well, they reached out, and for whatever reason, they think you might be a candidate for this role." So I went down there, and somehow it all worked out. But it was just a really fantastic experience. It was getting to step behind, as somebody who loves movies just like everybody, and seeing how Hollywood does their thing, was really, really magnificent. And then also just getting to work with people who I respected. And I just seen Boogie Nights, and so when I found out that Mark Wahlberg was the playing the lead role, I was really excited to meet him and get to work with him. It was a little bit nerve-wracking, I'm not going to lie, but the singing part was easy. That wasn't the part that was challenging. It was when we had that actual dialogue interaction, since I'd never done anything like that. And he was great. I mean, I think he saw so that acting was not my first thing. I was a musician, and I think that he was very, very cool and very. I mean, I think it allowed me not to feel overwhelmed, and just to stay present and enjoy the whole process. So that was great.
That's great. You got to work there with Mark Wahlberg, and guys like Brian Vander Ark from, Verb Pipe was also
The
in
Verb
there.
Pipe.
Yeah, a bunch of cool
What a
people.
great song! Was it Colorful? There
Yeah.
was a song called Colorful? What a great song!
Absolutely, it was. Yeah,
I love that song.
Brian's a great songwriter and a good dude.
Really great songwriter.
So
Absolutely.
I just think that's great. People always ask about the idea of what happened with the Led Zeppelin thing, that when you ended up jamming with them, because that was such an incredible story, and people always said, you've been able to, sing with GNR. Obviously Slash has been such a big fan of yours and talked about on this show about how when he heard your vocals the first time and was looking for vocalists on that solo record, how he went, I got to work with this guy. Talk to me about those experiences. Let's start with the Led Zeppelin one, and then, of course, doing the Guns N' Roses, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, which was great.
Yeah, it's somebody would have told me. Sorry?
Oh, sorry about that. I was going to say, yeah, if you don't mind starting with this Zeppelin one, because I
Sure.
love that story about Jason Bonham, and so let's talk. We got to tell people about that who might not have heard the story before.
Sure. Well, interestingly enough, so I met Jason during Rockstar, because he was in the Steel Dragon band in that movie. He was the drummer, and I remember at one point sitting down with him in between. I don't know if we were rehearsing or something, and I mentioned to him, we got to talking about his father's legacy and how much I appreciate it. And he was genuinely, I was really impressed with him, and just how proud he was of his dad and everything that he achieved. And that was really beautiful to see. So fast forward about, I don't know, what was it, 6-7 years, whenever it was, I get this text from Jason, and he's like, "Can you call me?" And I was touring at the time, and I was in Germany. We just played a festival over in Germany, and I thought, oh, maybe he has a friend over here who wants to come to a show, get tickets or something. So I buzzed him. It was at night, and cut to the chase. He's just basically like, "Look, I'm here in London. would you be interested in coming over this weekend? I'm jamming with some friends. And I'm like, well, I'm on tour. Well, just out of curiosity, who are your friends? So when he lays out who his friends are, I'm just like, okay, yeah, I think we can make that. I think we can make that work. So yeah, it was crazy. I flew to London a few days later, and they let me know what songs to kind of have prepared, and we jammed. We jammed for a day, and it's something I will never ever forget. And so it went well, and then they reached out and asked if I'd be interested in coming back a few months later, and we jammed some more. I don't know, I think four more days or something. It was the stuff dreams are made of. It was like if someone would have told me when I was a kid listening to, In Through the Outdoor or any of those records, like you're going to be in a room jamming these songs with those guys someday. It was just such a trip. So.
Yeah, what was the first thing that when you walked into the room the first time? Tell me about the meeting John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page the first time, and what their kind of reaction was, and how they were first time.
Oh, it was incredible. So I walked in the studio, and it was just a little rehearsal studio, but I heard like piano playing, and it was great piano. It was like I was like, man, somebody listened to Bill Evans or something, and it was really good stuff, right? Legit. And then I walk in the room, and it's John Paul Jones playing piano.
Yeah.
I was like, man, he's just so talented, right? And he was so sweet. He was just so nice and welcoming. And obviously, I'm very nervous. And then in comes Jimmy, and just like he has such a presence, right? He just comes walking into the room, and it was as if a deity had come from the heavens.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing. But there was one moment where I had a bit of a Chris Farley moment. When Chris Farley, where he's interviewing Paul McCartney, and there's that moment where he kind of smacks himself on the head, like, oh, how could I have been so stupid and said that? I had one of those moments, and we'd only been, I don't know, I've been in the room for a few hours, and we're taking a little break, and I think I just had to say it. I could, because I'm such a fan. I just looked at them both and thanked them. And I was like, you guys basically wrote the blueprint for everything that guys like us do. I just had to get it out, and they just kind of looked at me like they were very sweet about it. But it was one of those things where I was like, I probably shouldn't have said that, but it was great. I mean,
and they were so cool about it. Doing that with the Led Zeppelin guys, it's just incredible. So I know that No Quarter was one of the songs you did, but tell me about what songs you ended up playing with them, because you obviously played more, quite a few.
Yeah, we did. No Quarter, that was amazing. Getting to play that with them. Carousel Alhambra, which is kind of a off the beaten path, kind of a song you don't hear a lot about, but I love that song. And that was great. There were some fun moments, because it's just a very long sonic journey. I enjoyed that. What else did we play? I mean, it's all just, we did play Kashmir.
Yeah.
That was something else.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a massive sounding song too, right? It was fun to sing through that. That's an incredible. It was just, I'm so glad you got to do that. And and you can't help but not tell those people that you appreciate them, that they've been a big part of it. So there's nothing about that. I mean, even though they've heard it before, it still matters to them, and I'm sure they appreciated it in a big way.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope so.
I
was trying to be cool, and I'm not, anybody who knows me, I'm not really the coolest guy. I'm a nerd at the end of the day. I'm a total music nerd. So I was kind of fronting. It's like, I don't want these guys to know I'm a total geek, but they saw a little bit at that moment.
I bet it was great. John Paul Jones, one time he told me that his dad didn't want him to join Led Zeppelin. He was like, his father said to him, What are you starting a band for? You're making so much money as a session musician. This is great. Why would you want to ruin that by starting a band? Obviously, he didn't ruin anything. It became one of the most important bands in the history of music, right? But it's so incredible. That moves on. That moves us on to, like, let's talk about, Slash has told me his side of when he discovered you, met you. But tell me about that experience as well, because I know that people would like to hear that from you.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's an interesting story because there were a few different points along the way when they were looking for singers for Velvet Revolver, and they were just auditioning singers. And I don't know if he remembers this, but he did call. It was like around 2002, if I remember correctly, and we talked briefly on the phone. And he sent a demo of like four of the tracks they'd been working on. And long story short, there, I never sent the demo back. I basically just I just never could muster up the courage to throw my hat in the ring on that one. And I just didn't feel like I was really ready for something of that magnitude. I mean, I was just at that point in my life, I was just wasn't the right time. And so then fast forward a few years later, and he was doing his first solo record. And from what I understand, he had heard my name talked about a few times. I think it was after that jam session that I did with Jason Bonham and Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones. And so he kept hearing my name. It's like, I'm going to reach out to this guy and kind of see what's up. So he sent the music for what would end up becoming Starlight off his first solo record. And I wrote a melody and a lyric, sent it back to him, and sang at my little demo studio. And then he's like, cool, let's do this. And he flew me down to LA, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, it's amazing. Here we are now. Obviously, you did that 4 album. What was some of the differences? I mean, and actually, maybe I should ask, how much time was there between when you recorded the album number 4 with Slash and the Conspirators, and you started the Alter Bridge record? Were you working on them simultaneously at all? Because I know you also did some touring.
Yeah, let's see, we did it's also the last few years are such a blur. It's funny.
It's easy to happen,
Yeah, right.
You know,
I think, if correct me if I'm wrong, I think we recorded. Yeah, we did. I do know this. We recorded the 4 record with Slash, the Conspirators, and with Dave Cobb at the helm, great producer. At I believe that was February, March of 2021. And then we did a little bit of touring in the U.S. And then what happened next? I don't know. It's seriously such a blur. But I know I wasn't working on. The Alter Bridge process and the Slash process did not get in the way. I was long kind of done with making that 4 record when I started working on ideas for the Pawns and Kings Alter Bridge record.
Yeah. Speaking of Pawns and Kings, I just have to say before I have a Guns N' Roses question too, but I wanted to say that song is really, what a strong way to end the album. Can you talk to me about tying the whole record together with that final track?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. What's interesting about that song, and there's another song on the record called Holiday, the same thing almost happened. They almost didn't even make the record.
Which blows my mind.
Yeah, it's funny because, when you're demoing, when you're writing songs, sometimes you don't know, you get too close to things. Yeah. And I will say with Pawns and Kings, when I was chipping away at it in the studio, in my demo studio, I had so many parts and so many sections. It just wasn't quite crystallized yet. And so after I'd submitted all the demos and Mark had submitted all his demos for the record, I remember sitting with our producer Elvis and our manager Tim as well, and they're like, they kind of know, they're like, because it's happened in the past, like, we know you've got more stuff. Just out of curiosity, do you have anything else you've been working on? And I was like, okay, well, I'll play a little bit of these 2 songs here, and they're both, well, those are both going on the record. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, I just was too close to the tracks. I just didn't know. So fortunately, that's the beauty of having people to bounce ideas off of, because otherwise songs will just fall through the cracks,
Absolutely, it will. I thought you were great. I was there in the audience that night when you sang for the Guns N' Roses, going and being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I love that you did it, and I was very proud of seeing you up there and crushing it. How was that experience for you? Was it a little bit nerve-wracking? Was it just, how did you feel about that all? And I mean, you were obviously really close to Slash already, and you'd known Duff and those guys. So tell me about that experience that night in Cleveland.
Well, nerve-wracking would be the understatement of the decade. Yeah, it was very nerve-wracking. I think there was a part of me. I mean, I was really beyond flattered. Um, but with that said, initially, when they brought up the idea, I respectfully kind of held off and just like I don't, I just didn't my I was trying to listen to what the universe or my gut was telling me, and it was hard. It was but I think after thinking about it and really doing some soul searching, I was like, you know what, I'm taking myself out of this whole thing. These guys, this is an incredible opportunity for them. They're getting inducted, and if they want to play their songs, if all right, I'll do what I can here. But there was also a part of me that thought that maybe everybody would show up at the last minute and it would be just this, and I would just watch from side stage or backstage. So I was just, it was a very, very, and the fan of me was hoping for that scenario. Believe me, I wanted to see them all doing what they're doing now, which is beautiful. It's amazing. So
yeah, it would have been great to see Axl, of course, but it was great that you
absolutely.
did it, and I thought you did a fine job, and again, you get into it. The reason you do it in the first place is because you're a fan, right? I mean, that's the thing. You love those records, and that's the whole thing behind it, which I think is great. But I mean, it was you were gonna say. So I was just gonna say it was like because you had that great relationship with Slash. I'm sure that made it a little bit easier to make that decision, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're all like, those guys are all so cool, and
I mean, Duff is one of the friendliest guys ever, right?
Duff's amazing.
Love him, man.
Duff is like, he's so cool, and so that helped with the gravity of the situation because they're such great guys. That certainly helped. But there's a moment the moment out of that whole scenario that sticks out more than anything was turning around and seeing Steven Adler just beaming from ear to ear. He was so happy, and at that moment I was like, you know what, I'm glad that I didn't kind of rain on the parade in that respect. So just seeing them play those songs, and at that moment, that was a really special moment. So
I was glad they included Steven in that as they should with the first record, and it was cool. I'm excited about you guys getting ready to go out and tour with Alter Bridge for this and do the things you're doing. Tell me about, now that you've got 7 albums, how hard is it to decide what songs you do when you're putting that set list together? I mean, obviously there's some great stuff on this new record, so I would assume you got to get like 3 to 5 of those new tracks in there. But then it's tough with the other albums because it's a lot of hits. So talk to me about how you guys is it kind of a democratic situation? Do you guys sit there, the 4 of you, and go, well, we know we got to do this one, or how does it work usually?
We arm wrestle.
That's great.
And I lose. No, it's challenging. I think that's going to be really, really challenging. Seeing how but it's a great problem to have, because I remember when we first started touring, we only had one record, and so then you're like, what covers are we going to do? And which is interesting because that is bringing everything back around. We did a cover of Kashmir at one point, and that is part of, from what I've been told, part of what happened. I think John Paul Jones might have seen a clip of that performance, and that was part of how that whole jam session happened in 2008. So yeah, we definitely are going to have our work cut out for us as far as what songs are going to make the cut for the set. But it's a great problem to have.
It is a great problem to have. You can't go wrong with that. When you guys, let's look back. I mean, obviously, what kind of covers were you doing during the career of Alter Bridge? What kind of covers have you pulled out over the years? What were some of the things that you did early on, and then as you did, threw in some surprises? Do you remember?
Yeah. Well, we did Kashmir, and then we did at one point we were doing an Aerosmith song, which is kind of interesting for a band like us because we're not really don't have that blues rock thing. and I'm trying to remember which Aerosmith song. It might have been Sweet Emotion or something, but it was fun. We only did it a few times. We did, well, occasionally I'll cover Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Once in a while if it feels right. So I'm trying to think anything else along the way that we tried. It'll come to me.
Yeah, it will, definitely will. But I love that. Yeah, and I love when you've done Hallelujah too, and also when you do your solo thing, which has been really cool. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
I've seen you do acoustic, seen you do electric. So, but I love that you took the time today, Myles, to do this with me. I'm really excited about the record coming out October 14th. You know, which is great. It'll be here before you know it. You know what I mean? Can you talk about the tour? Do you know when you're hitting the road?
Yeah, we are hitting the road in Europe and the UK let's see, we start in November and tour into December.
Yeah.
So that's the start, and then we're trying to get things put together for next year in the rest of the universe.
That sounds great. Well, listen, you know, I just want to tell you, having gotten to hear this album in advance, I really love the record. I'm very impressed with these new songs, man, and the record rocks. But it's got a lot of different things going on in it, and just again, it's the next continuation of what's happening with Alter Bridge, and I think it's great. So, thanks so much, Myles, for taking the time to do the show with me today. Always
my pleasure.
Always great to see you, man. You know,
great to see you. Great to see you. A lot of history. It's so cool after all these years. We're both still in the game. It's wonderful.
It's a good thing, isn't it, Myles? I'm super grateful, man. You know, every day that I still get to do what I love, and we get to do what we love. There's nothing more important because it's our love for music and for rock and roll and people and just being out there and sharing that. And I think it's, you know,
absolutely.
It's nothing I'd rather do. So, a lot of gratitude. That's the thing that I get close. You know. Myles, thanks.
That's the way to be.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate it. It was great.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
you have a good one.
Good to see you. Myles Kennedy, everybody. Thanks so much for watching KLOS New and Approved. Don't forget the new album, Pawns and Kings, October 14th, however you consume music. I'll see you next time.